We see it every day, on the news, in the media. Confrontations between people with mental illness and authorities. In the worst cases, these encounters end in tragedy. Or people with mental health issues find themselves being run into a dysfunctional prison system instead of getting the appropriate care.
And stress can be really bad for people with mental illness. And then it happened. I had a psychotic break. And I never thought that could have happened to me. I had symptoms of a lot of different mental health issues, anxiety, depression, mania, all kinds of stuff, but I had never heard a voice before, and that happened. I had never had a delusion. I began thinking I was God. I could not make that delusion go away, and I started believing it. And when I heard the voice, I knew I was in serious trouble, and I knew I needed to get help. I ended up threatening to harm this woman who I wasn't even mad at, but in a delusional mental state, I was just doing things that didn't make any sense.
A young man, homeless and schizophrenic, beaten to death.
Police shooting death of a mentally ill man in Miami Gardens.
The police department had not properly trained officers.
Anna Quanya, a mentally ill 17-year-old girl who was killed by police in Texas.
The death of a 26-year-old man while in the custody of deputies has been ruled a homicide. The victim, Robert Saylor, had Down syndrome.
There are a series of trainings that law enforcement need, that exist, that are great. One is CIT, Crisis Intervention Training. This is specifically to train officers on how to identify people with mental illness, how to intervene in a way that does not escalate. You're not barking commands, you're not immediately escalating to physical confrontation, and you're trying to help de-escalate the situation. You're calming the situation and trying to immediately get that person to a place of help.
So whether we like it or not, police officers have become the first responders to mental health crisis in the neighborhood. So we were seeing like people living with mental illness were being locked up because of their mental illness.
You see the man in the green we now know is 35-year-old Glenn Broadnax lie down in the middle of the street. After that, he starts to run out into traffic with police on his tail. Then the shots.
Go. Just stay, get down.
But because the NYPD have not had the training to work with people with mental illness, they can't differentiate a person with mental illness with, someone who's really trying to actually hurt someone. I was here with my cousin when I realized, oh my gosh, we're in the middle of a shooting. So we were literally here, like standing here, and I realized that we're in the middle of a shooting. I grabbed my cousin and I just said, let's run. And as we ran this way, that's when the bullet hit me.
Okay, here, dude. Here, just come. Please, come on. Please don't, dude. Please.
Hypervigilance in the sense of who you may normally think is there to protect you may be the police. You in fact may see them as people who are against you. Previous exposure to trauma really can lead people to feel unsafe, and that would include the police. And heaven forbid they are arrested and treated in a certain way, then that just reinforces who you can really trust.
Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Show me your hands. Drop the knife. Drop the knife! Bring it on! Drop the knife! No! Drop the knife! No! Drop the knife! Oh, shit! Shots fired! Don't move! Don't move! Hey!
They all knew that I was suffering from a mental health problem. That's the only thing that hurt me, and that's why I'm so committed to crisis intervention training, is because if I had been diverted to a mental hospital, I wouldn't have a felony on my record, and I would have immediately gotten treatment. Because when I did get treatment, finally, when I got medication that worked, I came out of the delusion, and I was so sorry. Everything came around, but that police intervention is so important when the police are trained to deal with mental health crisis, and they can actually get somebody to a mental hospital as opposed to taking somebody to jail.